This is Medill Sports Talk, where we break down the news this week for the sports you love. I'm your host, Emmett McConnell, and I'm joined today by Nick Mantis and Alexa Adler. Today we're here to talk hockey. NHL playoffs are well underway, and 3 of the last 4 teams in the conference finals are confirmed. First up, the Washington Capitals have finally done it. After losing in the second round in 2016 and 2017 to the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Capitals finally beat the Pens after failing in this round in 2 successive years. What did it take for the Caps to finally take down the Penguins and make it to the conference finals?
Well, this was a real historic victory for the Washington Capitals. They completely defied all odds, defied against multiple injuries, suspensions, to win Game 6 and finally end a 20-year curse on Washington, D.C. This is the first time in 20 years that actually any of the 4 professional D.C. sports teams have made it to the 3rd round. So now we're in the Eastern Conference Finals, and now we're ready to go, as the Caps would say.
Well, I have to agree. I mean, it's just been incredible seeing their regrowth in this entire playoff series. What's interesting to us, I think, is that we didn't see this happening. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about how, Ovechkin's getting older. Yeah, he had, a 40-goal season, but the rest of the team around them, they're young, they're inexperienced. I'm not sure what they're going to be like in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They proved us all wrong, especially here on this show, and it's interesting to see what's going to happen in that 3rd round.
And not to mention Barry Trotz's ability to pivot with his lines. I think that really made the game what it was and allowed the Caps to finally win. Not to mention the fact that in Game 6 there were 5 rookies playing because, as we all know, Backstrom was injured in Game 5 in D.C., so he lost him, a great forward, obviously, for the Caps. Wilson was suspended, and then Burakovsky has been out for a while due to injury. So the ability of the Caps players and these 5 rookies, too, to step up and really want it and fight for it, I think that was incredible. And for D.C. sports fans, that was everything.
You mentioned it's been 20 years since any team from the nation's capital has made it this far in the playoffs. What does it mean for Washington fans?
I think this has really revitalized D.C. as a city, D.C. as sports fans. I think if you were to go into bars in D.C., people are definitely rocking the red. People are out and about. People are finally getting the hope that they so wanted for all these years, especially after the last 2 years. As we all know, the Caps were actually favored to win the Stanley Cup last year, and they had the best overall record 2 years in a row, and they fell to the Penguins twice. So I think for Caps fans and DC fans, this is finally sort of breathing life back into their desires, not to mention the fact that people were not expecting this from the Caps this year due to salary caps and the NHL expansion draft. So it's very interesting that this is how it's played out.
Yeah. I mean, so talking about some success overcoming adversity, let's kind of go the other way with it. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Boston Bruins getting eliminated by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nick, what did you see from the Bruins' early exit?
Yeah, we're gonna go there, aren't we? All right.
Well, here we go. Gloves off.
Being a kid from Boston, it was not ideal. You're looking at this entire playoff series, and you're saying, okay, you had some dominance in the first round. Second round, you're going up against Tampa. You know what they have in net. You know what they're going to be on that defensive side. McAvoy for Bruins goes down. You have Miller who gets up behind him. Sure, you can have those guys on defense, try to play a little bit harder, but he's not who McAvoy is. Chara's older. He's getting a little slower, especially in this round. You get Tuukka Rask, who's letting in 33 goals. Other guys around the league, Tuukka, if you're listening, they're letting in only 17. Yeah, I'm talking Marc-Andre Fleury. We don't have the same type of we're not seeing the same type of Boston Bruins team where they're relying more on distraction, and I'm talking about Brad Marchand.
Yeah, and what's the deal with Brad Marchand? That isn't exactly normal human behavior.
And that was, I mean, it was distracting. It's him taking away, him doing the whole, I guess you can call it the licking gate in a way, was taking away from them actually playing real hockey.
Yeah.
So for them, all together, I think his distractions, the team not playing together, the team not going back to what they know, it was unfortunate to see that that's what became the main story for this Boston Bruins team.
No, yeah, I feel like he's a wannabe Sean Avery, and I don't think that that's a good move for him, because licking someone, that's even worse than spitting. And the fact that he's done it multiple times in the league has warned him, but it hasn't seemed to curb any of his behavior, and he's even been on Twitter making jokes about it, doing the kissy face emoji. I think it's really unprofessional and not really a great look.
Yeah.
Let's move things over from the Eastern Conference to the Western Conference. In its inaugural season, the Vegas Golden Knights have quashed all doubts and earned a spot in the Western Conference Finals. We've never seen anything like this before. What sets this Golden Knights team apart, Alexa?
Well, I think this is an incredible thing for all hockey fans to watch, because it almost feels like almost any hockey fan can have a vested interest in the Golden Knights, because most people have a player from their home team on the squad. So it's really incredible to see these players that have been successful in their own rights before they joined the Golden Knights to sort of come together and form this incredible chemistry and bond, which you never know if that's going to work out or not. I mean, I think that people doubted William Karlsson, but he's been a breakout star. You've got Nate Schmidt, Marc-Andre Fleury, Braden McNabb. These people all have something to prove. Their teams let them walk away, and they're out here killing it. They're undeniable.
I'd say those names especially. I'll put two more names on there. Yeah, I like Riley Smith and John Marchessault. Those two guys, they've been incredible this past entire Stanley Cups. We were talking about those 17 goals that Marc-Andre Fleury is only letting in. Everybody wants to talk about who's going to get the Vezina Trophy, who's actually going to be that top goalie. Right now, it actually matters. These playoffs, and Marc-Andre Fleury has been the best starting goalie out of these entire playoffs. And it's just, I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's incredible.
For Vegas, all around, it's just fun to watch, knowing how they started, knowing the tragedy that happened, and now seeing them, probably, going further into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I mean, you mentioned that. Let's get a little ahead of ourselves here. Do we expect Vegas to make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs and even hoist the cup at the end?
I think it's a huge possibility. Huge. I mean, we have never seen this kind of dominance from any expansion team. This is unprecedented, and I think they're hungry, they want it. And, in a lot of these series, they're not even going to Game 7, which is unreal, because they're not playing bad teams. They're playing very competitive, great players. So we have to wait and see how it plays out, but I would say definitely.
And those teams that you were talking about specifically, or we're talking about the LA Kings.
Yes.
Talk about the San Jose Sharks. Those two Cali teams that have been dominant in the Western Conference for the past, 5 to 10 years. What does Vegas say? Hi, it's our first year. We're going to run through you, and then we're going to go into your house. We're going to have this big night. Who's going to sit there, on our ice to have this big, almost a Vegas Cirque du Soleil display. We're going to literally go through every single team so far in the West. They're definitely, I think, they're the big dogs of the West right now, and they're shocking all of us and making me on this show shut my mouth again for acting like they're the young bucks.
We've been talking about this for a while.
It's just it's ridiculous, and I'm really seriously taking a good look at them now that they've proved me wrong twice on this show. So
let's get to prediction time then. In the Eastern Conference,
here we go.
The Washington Capitals take on the Tampa Bay Lightning for a spot in the Stanley Cup Finals. Alexa, who do you got?
All right. I have the Caps on this one, and here's why. Because the Caps only fell to Tampa Bay 1-2 during the regular season during an overtime loss, and I think now actually the Caps are playing better than they ever have before. I think Braden Holtby has kept the Capitals in the playoffs. He's incredible. His save percentage is actually higher this year during the playoffs than last year. I think that it's going to come down to who wants it more. Obviously, Tampa Bay is incredibly talented. It's a Vezina finalist against a Vezina recipient, meaning Holtby won in 2016, and now we have Vasilevsky, on the block for this year. So.
Yeah, he's probably that pick that everybody's going to think for that Vezina Trophy, for Tampa Bay, and that's why I'm picking Tampa Bay. I think that they have it all together. They know what they have to do, in these Stanley Cups. They weren't going to get distracted by the Bruins. They weren't going to, worry about everything else that was going on. They weren't mystified by the Big B. They said, okay, this is how we're going to be. We're probably one of the best teams coming out of the Eastern Conference of the NHL this entire year. And this is how we're going to prove to you that you should take us really seriously. Vasilevsky and net, you got those guys who really are doing everything they can to prove to everybody that Tampa Bay shouldn't be overlooked, and we shouldn't, like Vegas, we shouldn't overlook this team and just think that Washington's going to roll through them.
So before we can get to the Western Conference Finals, we still have a Game 7 to go. The Winnipeg Jets take on the Nashville Predators in this deciding game to face off against the Golden Knights in the Western Conference Finals. Nick, who do we got in that game?
I'm gonna go Jets. You know, I think a big Bufflin. He's gonna rock some guys around when it comes down to Nashville. And Nashville has a lot of attention on them. Last year, we weren't sure, who they really were, what they were gonna bring. They shocked everyone going as far as they did in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You got guys like Subban, you got guys in net like Rene who can do some pretty amazing things when it comes to the ice. But for the Jets, I just think they have it all together. They went through the Wild, and now with these guys, they're going to go into Nashville, and they're really they're going to play harder. And I think they squandered a chance to finish it off in Game 6. But Rene was playing out of his mind with that shutout. So I think that they're going to make it happen, and this Game 7 is going to be Jets, and it'll be interesting to see them going up against the Knights.
Interesting. Let's move on to the last round then, the Stanley Cup Finals. Who do you think is going to be playing, and who's going to be winning it all, Alexa?
I think Vegas Golden Knights and Washington Capitals. And I think that, but I will say, I do think that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to take home the cup. I think this is going to be the year that we are rewriting history, talking about expansion teams in hockey. And I think that they have incredible chemistry. There's no reason in the world to think that they're not going to win the cup. They have the talent. They have the stats. I think it's their year.
I think this is probably the first time on this segment that we're going to agree with each other. I was going to change it to the Washington Capitals show just because of how much you love them. But I think that with Vegas, they're just that younger team with the chip on their shoulder, with an entire city around them that was hurt after that tragedy. So what happens after something like the Boston bombing? What happens after something where situations like that happen? These teams rile around, or they get all together around that type of team, or that type of chance to bring some happiness back to a community that really needs it right now. And I honestly think these Kings are playing for more than just each other. They're playing for their entire community, and I think that's who it's going to be. With Tampa Bay. So yeah.
I'm going to have to throw my hat into the ring as well. I'm a fan of the Golden Knights. I'm going to have to give them the go-ahead to lift this cup. It's been quite an amazing story for them, and I think it'll be amazing if they end up actually, raising the cup up. That's all the time we have today on Medill Sports Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Snapchat at Medill Sport Talk. For Nick Mantis, Alexa Adler, I'm Emmett McConnell. Thanks for watching.